Chapter 8 is one of my very favorite chapters of Peter Pan, mostly because of a really pretty special memory I have of a time when I actually saw the play performed in London a couple of years ago. It was done in the round. It was a beautiful production, lots of flying. Usually when they do Peter Pan on stage, the flying just kind of happens back and forth like this, and it's really boring. But in this one, they had them hooked up to professional harnesses, and they were flying all over the place. It looked really neat. Now this chapter ends with Wendy and Peter being stranded as the tide comes in. And there's this really great moment where Peter, who has been injured, cannot fly and wants Wendy to go on without him. Now in the book it says that she's too tired. In the play they actually altered it just a little bit to not being too tired but being too afraid to fly without Peter, which in some ways I think is a better reading of the scene. But whether she's tired or afraid, Wendy at this point has reached the halfway point of her journey. We're halfway through the novel almost exactly, and she has reached a point where she could be, if she wanted to, brave enough to fly without Peter. Now, if Peter represents childhood and imagination and freedom, Wendy's not entirely sure she's ready to let go of him yet, which is really what is going on in the symbolism of this scene. The literal scene is Wendy needing to get off the rock before she drowns, but the symbolism behind the scene is Wendy is going to be drowned because she's running out of time. She's going to get older, whether she's ready for it or not. Age comes upon you no matter what happens, unless you die. So the tide is coming in, which represents Wendy kind of just running out of time in general, and she can either fly without Peter, or she can drown. Or in this case, she can be fortunate enough to have the help of a kite, which I think is a nice symbol as well, because kite does help her fly, but it also helps her fly without the assistance of Peter. So there's a lot of symbolism that goes on at the end of this chapter. In this case, growing up is kind of forced upon Wendy because she's pushed off without any help, or with help without any choice by Peter. At the very end of the novel, you'll see a very different shift as Wendy essentially chooses to leave instead of being forced into it. So this, I think, is another great example of a scene where Wendy grows up a lot, or definitely shows as a contrast for when she grows up even more at the end.